Jason Blackwood had never planned on running a business, let alone inheriting a luxury resort. At 28, he was living a comfortable life in New York, far removed from the responsibilities of his family's empire. His father, William Blackwood, was a self-made millionaire who had built Blue Paradise Resort in the Florida Keys from the ground up. The resort was his life's work, a dream he had nurtured for decades, turning a rundown beachfront property into a five-star destination known for its pristine beaches, world-class service, and exclusivity. But everything changed on a quiet summer morning when Jason received the call. His father had suffered a fatal heart attack. The news hit him harder than he expected. Though their relationship had always been complicated, Jason often resisting his father's attempts to involve him in the business, he had never imagined losing him so soon. As he flew to Florida for the funeral, Jason was overwhelmed by a mix of emotions: grief, regret, and a gnawing uncertainty about what came next. His mother, Sarah Blackwood, a woman of grace and quiet strength, met him at the resort. Despite her composed exterior, Jason could see the sadness in her eyes. She had spent her life by William's side, supporting his vision for Blue Paradise. Now, she too was left wondering what the future held. The day after the funeral, the family lawyer, George Sullivan, gathered key staff members and business associates for the reading of William's will. Jason expected what most heirs of wealthy families would: he would inherit the resort and the fortune that came with it. But his father, a man known for his keen instincts and ability to see beyond the surface, had left behind something far more complicated. Jason Blackwood shall inherit full ownership of Blue Paradise Resort and all associated properties, on one condition. The room fell silent. Jason, seated between his mother and his father's longtime assistant, Emily Rodriguez, leaned forward. He was not the only one caught off guard. Even the resort's general manager, Mark Thompson, a man who had worked for William for over a decade, looked surprised. The lawyer continued. To assume full control, Jason must work in every department of the resort for 6 months, starting from the lowest position. During this time, he must use a false identity and may not reveal who he truly is to anyone except those present in this room. If he fails to complete this period, control of the resort will be handed over to a board of directors, and Jason will receive only a monthly allowance. Jason was speechless. His father had set a test for him, even from beyond the grave. "This is ridiculous," he finally said, turning to his mother. "Did you know about this?" Sarah shook her head, her expression unreadable. Emily, however, simply nodded, as if this was exactly what she had expected from William Blackwood. Mark Thompson cleared his throat. "Your father was a brilliant man," he said, his voice measured. "He wanted to make sure that whoever ran this place truly understood it, from the ground up." Jason clenched his jaw. He had spent years avoiding the responsibilities his father had hoped he would take on. And now, he was left with a choice: walk away from his inheritance or step into a world he knew nothing about. He took a deep breath, looking around the room. These were people who had worked alongside his father for years. Some skeptical, some hopeful, all waiting for his decision. And deep down, Jason knew this was exactly what his father had intended. The first morning of Jason's new life arrived far too soon. The Florida sun had barely begun to rise over the horizon, casting a soft golden glow over Blue Paradise Resort. But for Jason, there was no time to admire the beauty of his family's empire. Instead, he stood in front of a small bathroom mirror in the employee quarters, barely recognizing himself. Gone were the tailored suits and polished shoes he had always worn. Now, he was dressed in a faded navy blue maintenance uniform, his once neatly styled hair now slightly overgrown, his face shadowed by several days' worth of stubble. His new name was Jack Carter, a temporary alias meant to keep his identity hidden from the resort's employees. "Good morning, Jack," he muttered to himself, adjusting the name tag pinned to his chest. Stepping outside, he felt a wave of discomfort. The staff area was a world away from the luxury he had always known. The resort's private villas, infinity pools, and ocean view suites were reserved for guests. But here, in the hidden corridors and break rooms, the real work of keeping Blue Paradise running took place. Jason, now Jack, walked through the service entrance, where a group of maintenance workers were already gathering for the morning briefing. Martin, the head of maintenance, was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, with calloused hands and a no-nonsense demeanor. He looked Jack up and down before handing him a worn-out tool belt. "You must be the new guy," Martin grumbled. "Hope you're not afraid of getting your hands dirty. We've got a clogged drain in the guest cabanas, and a broken air conditioner in one of the honeymoon suites. Think you can handle that?" Jason nodded, though in truth, he had no idea how to fix either. His first task, a clogged sink in Cabana 12, seemed simple enough. But as Jason struggled with the plumbing wrench, water suddenly gushed out, soaking his uniform and flooding the bathroom floor. A young housekeeper passing by burst into laughter. "Looks like the new guy's having a rough start," she teased. Jason forced a smile, his frustration mounting. How had his father done this for years? By mid-morning, he had moved on to his next assignment, repairing an air conditioner in Suite 305. This time, he tried to be more careful, following Martin's instructions closely. As he worked, he overheard a hushed conversation outside the suite. Mark Thompson, the general manager, was speaking with an unfamiliar man in a crisp gray suit. "You can't keep raising prices," the man said. "We had a deal." Mark's voice was low but firm. "Things have changed. With William gone, we need to make adjustments. Just make sure the payments keep coming." Jason's hands froze on the screwdriver. What payments? And why had his father's death changed things? Before he could hear more, the men walked away. Jason finished the repair quickly, but his mind was racing. His father's will had forced him to work among the employees, but maybe, just maybe, this was the best place to uncover the truth about Blue Paradise. That afternoon, Jason took his lunch break in the employee cafeteria, a stark contrast to the resort's guest restaurants. No white tablecloths or ocean views, just plastic trays and cafeteria-style seating. He found a corner table and sat down, exhausted. As he picked at his meal, a young woman with dark hair and warm brown eyes sat a few tables away, her nose buried in a thick accounting textbook. Something about her stood out from the crowd. She wasn't chatting with the other waitresses, wasn't scrolling through her phone, she was studying. Curious, Jason got up and casually walked past her table. "Accounting, huh?" he said, nodding toward the book. She looked up, surprised, then smiled. "Studying for my exams." Jason extended a hand. "Jack." "First day in maintenance." "Olivia," she said, shaking his hand. "Waitress and part-time college student." Before they could continue talking, Martin's voice rang out from across the room. "Jack. Break's over. We've got a busted light fixture in the ballroom." Jason sighed, giving Olivia an apologetic smile. "Duty calls. Maybe I'll see you around?" Olivia chuckled. "If you survive another day, sure." As Jason hurried back to work, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just met someone important, someone who might help him uncover the truth about Blue Paradise. The days at Blue Paradise Resort were long and exhausting, but for the first time in his life, Jason, now Jack, was beginning to see the world from a different perspective. The once distant and faceless workers who kept the resort running were now his co-workers. He scrubbed floors alongside the janitors, carried toolboxes with the maintenance crew, and even helped the kitchen staff prepare for the lavish meals served to guests. But beneath the daily grind, something felt off. Over the past few weeks, Jason had overheard whispers among the employees, hushed conversations about missing supplies, questionable financial records, and changes that had started after William Blackwood's death. The resort, once thriving under his father's leadership, was beginning to crack under the weight of something hidden beneath the surface. His suspicions only grew stronger when Olivia, the sharp-minded waitress he had befriended, confirmed his fears. One afternoon, as they sat together on a quiet break, she leaned in and whispered, "Jack, have you noticed anything strange about the resort's finances?" Jason hesitated. He had no accounting background, but he had seen questionable transactions in the supply room invoices, cheap ingredients ordered while menu prices stayed the same, cleaning supplies mysteriously disappearing, and maintenance budgets slashed despite the resort's steady profits. "Why do you ask?" he said carefully. Olivia glanced around before continuing. "I've been studying accounting for college, and I've noticed things that don't add up. The numbers in our payroll system don't match the hours employees actually work. Some vendor payments seem inflated." Jason's pulse quickened. He had thought Mark Thompson, the general manager, was simply running the resort differently than his father had. But now, he was certain Mark was up to something. That evening, Jason decided to dig deeper. He waited until most of the staff had left for the night and quietly made his way toward the accounting office. Olivia had mentioned that old financial records were kept in a locked filing cabinet. His heart pounded as he carefully picked the lock with a small tool he had borrowed from the maintenance shop earlier that day. It clicked open. Inside, he found a folder labeled Special Investments. He flipped through the pages, his breath catching as he saw bank transfers to offshore accounts, falsified invoices, and records of payments to unnamed individuals. These weren't simple bookkeeping errors, this was fraud on a massive scale. Suddenly, Jason heard footsteps in the hallway. He quickly shoved the documents back into the folder and locked the drawer. As the footsteps grew closer, he ducked behind a bookshelf just as the door creaked open. Mark Thompson stepped inside. Jason held his breath, watching as Mark walked to his desk and picked up a phone. "Yes, the next payment went through," Mark said in a low voice. "No, the kid doesn't suspect a thing." Jason clenched his fists. "The kid." Mark was talking about him. He waited until Mark left before slipping out of the office. His mind raced. His father's resort was being drained of money. Employees were being lied to. And Mark was at the center of it all. The next morning, Jason met Olivia by the employee lockers. They had to act, but how? "I need your help," Jason said. Olivia frowned. "With what?" Jason took a deep breath. "I think Mark is stealing from the resort. And I need proof." Jason could no longer ignore the truth. Mark Thompson was stealing from Blue Paradise. The resort that his father had spent decades building was being used as a front for something much bigger. Offshore accounts, falsified invoices, and missing money, it all pointed to corruption at the highest level. But Jason knew that without hard evidence, no one would believe him. Fortunately, he wasn't alone. Olivia had agreed to help him. With her background in accounting, she could decipher the financial records far better than he could. Over the next few days, they worked in secret, gathering documents and piecing together the puzzle. They discovered that Mark wasn't acting alone. There were silent partners, unnamed individuals receiving large payments from the resort's accounts. Some of the money was being funneled through fake vendor contracts, while other funds simply disappeared without explanation. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous it became. One evening, after finishing his maintenance shift, Jason met Olivia behind the staff quarters. She held up her phone, her expression tense. "I found something," she whispered. "There's a private account linked to the resort's payroll. Money is being transferred there every month, but it's not going to an employee. It's going to someone outside the company." Jason's stomach twisted. "Who owns the account?" Olivia shook her head. "I can't tell yet. It's protected under a business entity, but I think Mark knows we're onto something." Just then, a shadow moved nearby. Jason spun around, his pulse racing. Someone was watching them. "We need to leave," Jason said quickly, taking Olivia's hand and leading her toward a side exit. They walked briskly, trying to act normal, but Jason could feel the weight of unseen eyes following them. As they rounded a corner, a voice stopped them cold. "Going somewhere?" It was Mark. He stood there, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on his face. "You know, Jack," he said, his tone too casual, "I've been hearing some interesting things about you. Seems like you and Olivia have been spending a lot of time together, asking a lot of questions." Jason forced himself to stay calm. "Just getting to know my coworkers," he said, shrugging. "Is that a problem?" Mark's smile faded. He took a step closer, his voice lowering. "You've been sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. That's a dangerous habit. And habits like that, well, they can get people fired." Jason clenched his fists, but Olivia squeezed his arm, silently warning him to stay quiet. Mark's gaze flickered between them before he sighed dramatically. "Just a friendly warning," he said. "Blue Paradise is a big place. People disappear all the time. I'd hate for that to happen to either of you." With that, he walked away, leaving Jason and Olivia standing in tense silence. Olivia exhaled shakily. "Jason, this is bad." Jason nodded. "I know. But we can't stop now." He looked out over the resort, the place his father had built, the place he was supposed to inherit. It was clear now, this wasn't just about money. It was about power. And Jason was about to fight for everything his father had left behind. Jason had always known his father was a brilliant businessman, but he never realized just how much foresight William Blackwood had. The more Jason uncovered about the corruption at Blue Paradise Resort, the more he suspected that his father had seen trouble coming long before his death. And now, Mark Thompson's veiled threats had confirmed it. This wasn't just about fraud. There were powerful people involved, and if Jason wasn't careful, he and Olivia could become their next victims. But walking away wasn't an option. Sitting in a quiet corner of the staff cafeteria, Jason and Olivia leaned over a set of financial records spread across the table. Olivia tapped a figure with her pen. "This offshore account, it's receiving funds from multiple resort departments, not just payroll. Housekeeping, food suppliers, even maintenance contracts. Someone has been siphoning money from everywhere." Jason frowned. "And you still can't trace who owns it?" Olivia shook her head. "Not yet. But I have an idea. The accounting office keeps hard copies of all executive transactions in a locked file cabinet. If we can access those, we might find the final piece of the puzzle." Jason exhaled slowly. Breaking into Mark's office was risky. But they were running out of time. "We need a distraction," he said. Olivia thought for a moment before her eyes lit up. "What if we trigger a small emergency? Something that forces security and management to focus their attention elsewhere?" Jason smirked. You really are the smartest person I know. That night, as the resort hummed with the usual energy of vacationers enjoying their paradise, Jason and Olivia put their plan into motion. Jason had rigged a minor plumbing issue in one of the main guest suites, just enough to trigger an alert. Within minutes, chaos erupted. The front desk was overwhelmed with complaints, security rushed to assist, and Mark, predictably, stormed out of his office to deal with the situation. It was Olivia's moment. She slipped into the accounting office, her heart pounding as she searched through the locked cabinet. It took her 2 agonizing minutes to crack the lock, and when she finally pulled open the drawer, she found exactly what they needed, a folder labeled Special Investments. As she flipped through the pages, her stomach churned. It was worse than they thought. Money laundering. Bribes. Illegal offshore dealings. And then, at the bottom of the stack, a signed document linking Mark Thompson directly to the secret accounts. Olivia took out her phone and snapped photos of everything. But just as she was about to close the drawer, a shadow fell across the room. Looking for something? She froze. Mark was standing in the doorway. His expression was calm, but his eyes were full of menace. You know, Olivia, I really liked you, he said, stepping inside. But you just made a very, very big mistake. For the first time since this had started, Olivia felt real fear. Mark reached for his phone. She had seconds to act. And in that moment, she did the only thing she could think of, she ran. Olivia's heart pounded as she bolted from the accounting office, clutching her phone tightly. The corridor outside was dimly lit, but she didn't dare slow down. Behind her, Mark Thompson was coming after her. She could hear his footsteps closing in, his voice sharp and threatening. Olivia, stop now, and maybe we can talk about this. She didn't stop. Jason was waiting for her near the staff exit, his eyes widening as he saw her racing toward him. Run! She gasped, barely able to get the word out. Jason didn't hesitate. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back of the resort, weaving through the service pathways and past the employee dorms. The humid Florida night clung to their skin as they sprinted, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Behind them, Mark wasn't alone anymore. 2 security guards had joined him. They're trying to block the main exit. Olivia panted. Jason yanked her down a side path, leading toward the beach access road. The sand slowed their steps, but it also gave them cover. They ducked behind a row of beach cabanas, pressing themselves into the shadows. Jason whispered, "Did you get the evidence?" Olivia nodded, holding up her phone. "Everything. We have it all." Jason exhaled in relief, but they weren't safe yet. Mark and his men were still searching. From their hiding spot, they saw Mark pull out his phone and make a call. "We have a problem," he said, his voice low but urgent. "They know everything. I want them gone, tonight." Jason and Olivia exchanged a glance. "Gone?" Jason clenched his fists. This wasn't just about protecting the scam anymore. Mark was willing to go to extremes to keep them silent. They had to act fast. "We need to get to Emily," Jason whispered. Emily, his late father's trusted assistant, was the only person they could rely on. If anyone knew how to fight back against Mark and his partners, it was her. Sticking to the shadows, they moved carefully along the resort's perimeter, avoiding security patrols. Every second counted. Finally, they reached the back entrance to Emily's office. Jason knocked lightly, 3 quick taps, then 2. A moment later, the door cracked open, and Emily's sharp eyes peered out. "What are you two doing sneaking around at this hour?" she hissed. Then, seeing their faces, her expression hardened. "Get inside. Now." The moment the door shut behind them, Jason turned to Emily. "Mark knows," he said. "He caught Olivia in the accounting office. We have the proof, but they're after us." Emily didn't look surprised. Instead, she walked to her desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out an envelope sealed with his father's initials. "Your father knew this day might come," she said, handing it to Jason. "He left this for you, instructions on how to take back Blue Paradise and expose everything." Jason took the envelope with trembling hands. It was time to finish what his father had started. Jason held the envelope tightly, his father's initials stamped in bold black ink. William Blackwood had seen this coming. Even in death, he had left behind a plan, not just for Jason to inherit Blue Paradise, but to protect it from the corruption that had slowly crept in. Emily sat across from him, her face lined with exhaustion but her voice steady. "Your father always suspected that some of his business associates weren't trustworthy," she said. "But he kept them close, thinking he could control them. When he refused to expand their influence over the resort, they started working around him. And now, with him gone, they see an opportunity to take everything." Jason exhaled sharply. Mark Thompson and his silent partners weren't just stealing money, they were trying to seize complete control of Blue Paradise. "So, what's the plan?" Olivia asked. Jason broke the seal on the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a USB drive. His father's familiar scrawl filled the page. "Jason, if you're reading this, then I wasn't able to stop them myself. But you can. You must. On this drive, you'll find everything I gathered, contracts, emails, bank records. It's enough to bring them down. But be careful. They will not give up easily." Jason turned the USB in his hands. His father had done the work, but it was up to him to finish it. Emily leaned forward. "We need to act fast. If Mark realizes you have this, he'll do whatever it takes to silence you." Jason nodded. "We take this to the authorities. But first, we make sure that if anything happens to us, the truth still comes out." The next morning, Jason and Olivia set their plan in motion. While Emily discreetly contacted a trusted lawyer, Jason arranged a meeting with Mark, making it seem like he was willing to negotiate. "I know you're not working alone," Jason told Mark over the phone. "Meet me at the resort's private lounge tonight. Let's talk." Mark hesitated, but Jason knew greed and arrogance would win out. "Fine," Mark said. "But come alone." Of course, Jason had no intention of doing that. As the sun set over the Florida coastline, Jason arrived at the lounge, his heart pounding. Mark was already there, leaning casually against the bar, a drink in hand. Two of his security men flanked him. "You finally came to your senses?" Mark asked, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Jason slid a folder across the table, a carefully curated set of financial records, enough to make Mark sweat, but not everything. "This is just a taste of what I have," Jason said. "You're going down, Mark. The only question is how hard you want to fight it." Mark's expression darkened. "You think you're in control?" Jason leaned in. "I know I am." Before Mark could respond, police sirens cut through the night air. The doors burst open, and uniformed officers flooded in. Emily had delivered the evidence just in time. Mark stood, rage flashing in his eyes. "You set me up." Jason smirked. "You did that yourself." As the officers moved in, Jason exhaled. Blue Paradise was finally safe. At its heart, Blue Paradise is a story about legacy, integrity, and redemption, values that resonate deeply, especially with those who have spent a lifetime building something meaningful. William Blackwood's vision wasn't just about wealth, it was about creating something lasting. His son, Jason, had to learn this the hard way, by stepping away from privilege and immersing himself in the real work behind success. This story reminds us that true leadership isn't about power, but about understanding the people who make a vision possible. Jason only became a worthy successor when he stopped seeing the resort as a business and started seeing it as a community. For those who have built families, careers, and businesses, Blue Paradise is a reminder that our legacy is more than what we leave behind, it's how we shape the next generation. Trust, honesty, and perseverance matter more than quick success. Finally, the story teaches that facing hard truths and standing up against corruption, no matter the cost, is what defines true character. In life, we may not all inherit a resort, but we all leave behind a legacy. The question is, what do we want it to be?